What's up, guys? Can you hear me okay? Let me know if the audio is okay, if you can hear me and if you can hear the guitar. Just kind of getting warmed up, getting set up. Thank you. I love this guitar so much. I am so happy that I got it this year. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's the Gibson Les Paul Tribute. And it's kind of like a good value option for a Gibson Les Paul. But this thing just plays so nice. What color is the burst? This is Honey Burst. Quiet on the guitar. Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out for the audio. Let's see. Let's see if I can figure this out. Don't know if it will work because I've already saved the settings. I'm still new to live streaming, so bear with me. I want to do a live stream today. Again, thank you for everyone who's supported the channel. It's absolutely insane to me how many people have joined and subscribed, and so it's super cool. And thank you all for all the support, all the comments, all the sharing it and everything. It's really cool, and I love making content for you guys, and trying to think of new ideas, fun ideas, entertaining ideas and stuff. I have a couple that I'm working on this week, some tutorial stuff, some performance stuff. I have a kind of funny idea that I want to see if I can make work this week, but yeah, it's just it's so much fun, and the more positive feedback that I get, it just encourages me to make even more for you guys. So I wanted to do a Q&A today and answer as many of your questions as I can, whether it's tutorial lesson type questions, gear, playing, practicing, anything you want. Just feel free to ask away, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. I'm hoping you guys can hear the guitar. I might even maybe try the acoustic and see if that's better, just because with the microphone, I'm hoping it picks it up. But let's get into some questions. How many hours do you put a day into practice? Nowadays, I do teach a lot, so I am playing the guitar every single day. I don't sit down and really practice as much as I used to, but there was a long time where it was extreme dedication to practicing, and it was a lot of practice every single day, hours and hours every single day, and very dedicated practice, disciplined practice, working on multiple areas of your playing, really building yourself up as a musician that way. So I mean, obviously the more the better. The more time you have with the guitar spent in your hands, the more comfortable you're going to become with it, easier everything's going to be to play. Working on techniques and stuff just kind of eliminates obstacles in your playing, meaning that you can play faster and cleaner, not for the purpose of playing faster, but just use it as a tool so that you can kind of play whatever it is you want. quick arpeggio warm up with Survivor. Yeah, that's a fun one to play. I'm trying to think of more pop tunes or melodies that would also work as like fun exercises on the guitar. Let's see if I remember it. So much fun to play, and again, it's just from a song that you wouldn't really think of when you think of like guitar arpeggio workouts to go to Destiny's Child, but it's super cool and it's really fun to play. So sometimes I do that with students all the time, where we take songs from other uh, genres and styles and everything, and apply it to the guitar. It's a lot of fun. When did I start playing the guitar? I started playing quite young. Um, I started, I think I was 8 years old, 8 or 9, um, and just loved it, never really put it down, and would practice as much as I could, and by the time I was, like, 12 or so, that's when I started, playing in bands and performing and stuff like that, and um, yeah, so I was kind of lucky to start young. Not that you have to, you have a lot of great guitar players who started much later than that. So never ever feel like you're too late to start guitar. That's a ridiculous idea that I don't like. So I have students who start playing guitar in their 60s, and within a few years you can always be impressed by what you can accomplish. So basically, just always try to play guitar. Let's see what else we got here. Thank you very much for your guys' comments. I really do appreciate this stuff. As you're saying, you appreciate the content. I greatly appreciate you guys. So thank you so much for the support. I want to just give you guys the best content I can think of. So that's why I'm always suggesting in the comments and stuff like that. Just always leave comments of like what kind of videos you'd like to see more of, especially if it's like lesson type stuff. I do a lot of teaching, and I have so many different methods of teaching different things. So if it's something you guys are interested in, just let me know, and I can try to make videos explaining that kind of stuff. So thank you. Yeah, for the DJ Khaled video, that one was funny. Um, that one like blew up totally unexpectedly. I did that one late one night before bed. I thought of the funny idea, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just overdub some guitar on it." I went to bed. I woke up, and on TikTok, it had 1.5 million views overnight, and it just like blew me away. And now on TikTok, it has like over 6.5 million views or something insane like that. And then everyone is like duetting it and creating like solos over top and lyrics, and it's like so cool what everyone's doing with it. So I'm glad everyone seemed to like it. It was kind of like a fun little progression. How'd it go? Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. All right, let's get into more questions. I love answering you guys' questions, so keep them coming, please. How long can you play guitar without getting bored? That's a good question. Um, you have to keep it fresh. You have to keep it fun. You have to try different things. So it's really more just about finding stuff to practice or to work on that does motivate you and inspire you. So if you do find yourself getting bored, I would just try to like totally switch it up and try something completely different than whatever it is you're working on. Say you spend a lot of time learning songs of a certain style, just totally switch that up and try to dedicate yourself to having a better understanding of chords over the fretboard, or even training your ear to try to learn stuff better on your own. You could, even get away from the theory approach and just hunker down on technique for a little while, and just, or if you do a lot of that stuff and if you're always working on scales and exercises and stuff, which after a while can get a little boring, to be honest, try to learn some songs. Maybe search up some guitar players that are new to you and learn their stuff, because it will be new and refreshing that way. What was your favorite song to practice when you first learned to play guitar? Oh, that's a tough one. Just because it's going back so many years. Uh, when I first started learning guitar, I have to think of that. I had a book that had like, those kind of like 50 easy guitar songs to try or something like that. And I think I went through that book just trying as many of the songs as I could play. So I think there was stuff like House of the Rising Sun and I remember my guitar teacher showed me like a Collective Soul song, which I thought was a lot of fun, even though at the time I didn't really know who they were or listen to that type of music. But again, it's just fun to play. So it's always good to be kind of introduced to stuff that you may not normally listen to or try. It's a lot of fun that way. So, hey Giacomo, how you doing, bud? I see you there. Good to see you. One of my students on here. That's awesome. Thanks for joining, bud. Spend less time, more time on if you started all over again. I enjoy your content. Thanks. What would I spend less time or more time on if I started all over again? That is a really good question. Um, that's a good question. Maybe, here's kind of an answer to that is when I started guitar, I started really young, which a lot of people would look at as a great benefit. Like, oh, you started 8 or 9 years old, it gives you more time to develop your playing, which is true. But there actually is something I found is a little bit of a downside to that. When I started at 8 or 9 years old, the only thing I was concerned with was getting better at the guitar and more from a technical perspective. I would look up to these guitar players. I think it kind of started with like Slash, Jimmy Page, then it got into Eddie Van Halen, Joe Satriani, kind of carried on. And I'm looking at these like unbelievable guitar players, but I'm really only concerned with a lot of the technical side of it because I'm so young that like the emotional side of music hadn't really clicked in for me yet, right? And once you get into your teens, or at least for me, and later teens, like then you start listening to music not just because the guitar player can play sweep arpeggios at a certain speed, but you still like. So when I was younger, for example, at like 10 years old, only concerned with trying to be a technical guitar player, a band like Nirvana made no sense to me. I was like, why would anyone listen to this? It doesn't make sense to me. But again, like that's the wrong approach and that's the wrong perspective. But it's just I was so young, I didn't really understand it. I didn't get it. And then you get older and then you understand the songwriting and you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I love this stuff. So I think I would have spent a little less time on just developing technique and focusing so much on technique and just focusing more on using the guitar for expression, which is really what it's all about. So, yes, you do have to practice technique and you have to um, develop your technique so that you have the ability to play things you want to play. But the end result or the end goal should always be to use the guitar for expression, right? So, I love kind of sitting down sometimes and throwing all that stuff out the window and just sit with the guitar and try to play stuff that I don't normally play and use it for more expression. So that's a really good question. See, I love doing this stuff because you guys always have great questions here. Let's see. How many guitars do I own at the moment? Um, that's a good question. Two, three, four, five, six guitars, I think. At one point, um, I was lucky enough to get endorsed by a guitar company when I was younger. And we actually had a signature model that I did, which was a 7 string, which was pretty cool. And so with that endorsement, I would get guitars. And so at one point, I had quite a few guitars, but I ended up selling a lot of them. I find I'm a person where if I have a lot of uh, something, I'm gonna still just kind of gravitate towards one. So like my Ibanez that you see there, I play that a lot. And if I had like 5 more Ibanez's, I would probably still just play that one because I love that guitar. So, um, it's cool to have a lot of guitars, but I felt guilty having them kind of sit in their cases in a closet and not be used. So I ended up selling them. All right, let's see. Let's keep going with all these great questions. Thank you for all the congrats. I love it. What are the chords for my DJ Khaled thing? I did post a full tutorial for that on my channel, so you can check that out, and it walks you through all the chords and how to play it and stuff. So I won't really go into like a full tutorial of that, just because I think the video will better explain it. So, any advice on avoiding repetitive strain injury? Really, really important. Always warm up. Always start warming up slowly. Uh, I'm always encouraging students to do this, especially if you live somewhere where it gets cold, like I do up in Canada. You see me a lot between lessons and playing and stuff, just always kind of keeping my wrist, my arms, my fingers, and especially like in here warmed up, just kind of stretching, massaging fingers, just keeping blood flow, stuff like that. So just always warm up your fingers before you play. You don't want to pick up the guitar and just start shredding. uh, it's kind of like not being warmed up and then trying to lift as much weight as you possibly can. Probably a bad idea. Can you make tabs for the metal cover of my favorite things? Yeah, maybe I'd have to go back to that and also kind of remember exactly what I played. I know it is my favorite things, that classic melody, but I was kind of referencing more the Ariana Grande cover of that one. That's why I said when you listen to pop music, I called it pop music. And then some people were like, "It's not pop music," and it's like, well, I was referencing the pop tune, but I'd have no. Yeah, see, I don't remember how to play it. It's a great melody, though. It's like amazing. The only correct answer is too many, but not enough. Very true. Very true. I'll change my answer to that. If you could play for a band, which band would you play for? This is a great question, and um, the answer would probably surprise a lot of you. At least I think it would. The bands that I would love to play for are not the technical hard rock metal bands, even though I enjoy playing that style. I honestly would love to be the guitar player for like Taylor Swift or even like Harry Styles or someone like that. It would just be such a fun gig. Make sure you guys can see me here. It would be such a fun gig. Every gig would just be like a blast and be a lot of fun. And the music is just fun to play. And for me, I don't really enjoy performing the stuff where I'm going to use Dream Theater as an example, where you just have to have your head down and just execute the entire time. Like you want to have fun and you want to be on stage having a blast. And um, so it would actually be a lot more of like the pop gigs that I would love to play for. Or if it was Paul McCartney, I always joke that he wouldn't even have to pay me to be his guitar player. I would pay him to be his guitar player. If I was able to play on stage with Paul McCartney or a Beatle, I would do that gig for free any day. As you see the poster behind me. Huge Beatles fan. I have it. I think I saw the thumbnail for the interview with Britney Spears guitarist, but I don't think I've actually watched that video. I should check it out, especially um, since I'm talking about that, and that would be a great video to check out. Of course, you can get a shout out, bud. Slade and Shreds. Thank you for subscribing. I really do appreciate it. So thanks so much. Let me know what kind of content you want to see more of. Any tips for transitioning to TikTok for someone that's relatively successful posting guitar videos on Instagram? That's a good question. It can be really hard to transition between platforms. I started posting on TikTok expecting nothing to come from it. I thought maybe I'll get a couple extra views on my YouTube channel. And then TikTok really took off and totally surprised me. And it's funny, YouTube took a lot longer to at least get some momentum going. And with TikTok, like a lot of the videos started doing extremely well. I have at least half a dozen videos over like 1 million views and stuff like that. So that was totally unexpected. But again, I did find it tough to try to get that momentum on YouTube. And it's a different platform, it's a different algorithm, it's a different thing that connects with people. And even still, like the content that I would do for TikTok would be a little bit different than I would do for YouTube. So I think I would just suggest trying to understand how TikTok works the best you can, the algorithm, the things that connect. With TikTok, what I've found personally is you have to try to make content that is engaging from beginning to end. So if you're trying to make a video that you have it as a 40-second video, but it can be done in 15 to 20 seconds, then try to do it that way and just try to get it so that people are watching the full video. And then, of course, it has to be something good that either they come away with it with something funny or engaging or learning something. And obviously, anything that gets people commenting and sharing it is a big thing. So just try to think of content that you would want to share with your friends if you saw it, and then try to make that content basically. So I love this guitar so much. I'm currently working on a solo that I'm trying to cover, that I want to do this week at some point, maybe in the next couple days. And it's probably a solo that is like giving me some of the most trouble of one of some of the challenges that people have given me. So it's it, I'm using it sometimes with students as well, not the solo, but the way I'm practicing it would be a good thing to go over, um, of how to practice and how to work on something to get it as best as you can in a short period of time. Um, so what I mean by that is a lot of times when I get challenges, mostly on TikTok, of people saying, "Hey, um, can you play Cliffs of Dover or Arpeggios from Hell?" Or what were some of the other ones that people said? Oh, the Eugene's Trick Bag. That one was a challenge. That was tough. Um, I I usually try to learn those and do a video of it within the same day. So I will, or even like say 48 hours at the most. So Cliffs of Dover, that was within the day, and the same with Arpeggios from Hell. Um, so just trying to practice something efficiently so that you're trying to work on it and get good at it as quick as possible. So a couple of tips with that I'm currently doing with this solo that I'm working on is you have to start slow. You have to make sure you're really trying to play stuff slowly. I'm always saying that to students, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down at first, right? The worst thing is you don't want to start to memorize mistakes. You don't want to have your fingers start to memorize things that you're not supposed to be doing. So start slow. And then you want to just constantly challenge your memory with it as you're going. So see how far through it you can get by memory. And then when you get stuck, look at the tab, check that you're doing it correctly, and then again, try it again by memory and see if you can get slightly further that time. Now, with YouTube, the great thing is you can slow down videos in the playback speed. And I just learned recently, actually, thanks to a student, that you can customize the speed on the desktop version of YouTube, but not on the mobile, which I'm usually using my phone to play music in lessons. So what I'm doing right now is I'm slowing it down to like 75% speed and trying to play with that, and first focusing on the rhythm and the timing long before I worry about the speed. So if I can play it consistently at 75% all the way through, that is much, much better than trying to play little bits of it at 100% and it's choppy and I'm fumbling, but really trying to aim for the consistency first before trying to play it super fast. Then once you can do that and you can play it at 75% smoothly, then try to go up to 80, 85, 90, and just work your way up through those increments. Don't jump from 75 to 100, because it's probably just going to be a little bit too much of a shock at first. Or you can do that as kind of a shock, but then back it down. So like if you're at 75, sometimes it's good to just dive into 100%, but then bring it back down to like 85% and work on it again consistently that way. The positive thing with bumping it up to 100% as that shock is it's a bit of a perspective thing where say you're practicing something at 80%, then you go up to 85, it's going to feel fast, it's going to feel difficult. But if you jump up to 100 and then back it down to 85%, all of a sudden that 85 is going to feel a lot slower than it did before. So it's kind of like a mental uh, thing. It like kind of makes you look at it differently. It's kind of like the same thing with lifting weights. If you try to lift 30 pounds and it's heavy, and you try to lift 40 pounds, then you go back down to 30, and it's going to actually feel lighter all of a sudden. It's just kind of a perspective thing. So same thing with tips, or sorry, same thing with speed is trying to read and talk at the same time. Same thing with speed is sometimes you can use that little mental perspective challenge. But yeah, just work up in small increments and develop your speed that way. But speed is always the last thing to worry about. So let's see some more questions. I love all these questions here. Let's see. A question about your music theory video about modes. Do you sharp flat adjustments stay the same when applying this technique to a different scale, like a different major scale and minor scale? Yeah, no worries, bud. Oh, your music theory video about modes. Do you sharp flat adjustments stay the same when applying this technique to a different scale? So I think I understand the question, and feel free to let me know if I don't have it right. The adjustments that I outlined in the modes video are the adjustments made to the major scale to then be able to play all the 7 different modes of the major scale. So if you're trying to play Dorian, uh, then it would be a flat third and a flat 7. That means you would play the major scale, flatten the 3rd note, flatten the 7th note, and then that would give you your Dorian shape, your Dorian mode. It wouldn't work on other scales, meaning the adjustments to the minor scale. You wouldn't flatten the 3rd and flatten the 7th on a minor scale. That would give you something different. It can be good, though, to learn some of the modes in relation to the minor scale. So, for example, I was saying this to a student the other day. If you're looking at Phrygian, for example, Phrygian compared to the major scale has a flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, flat 7, a lot of different flats in it. But if you think of it as a minor scale with a flat 2, that's a lot easier to memorize. So you can use the minor scale sometimes in relating certain modes to them. It would work in other major scales. So the adjustments that I made to C major in the video, it would still be the same adjustments if you were to go to G major, F major, E flat major, anything like that. So that's the nice thing is the modes do stay consistent with whatever key that you go to. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if that answered your question. Hopefully it did. Oh, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. You know what's funny is 20,000 subscribers to me. I know on YouTube that's not like massive, but to me that's like huge because I remember when I reached 10,000, which now was only like a couple weeks ago. I was like, oh my God, 10,000 people, that's insane. And then I thought to myself, it would be really cool to get to 20,000. And I did not expect it to happen so fast. So thank you guys for the support. And I want to keep going. I want to try making more content, as I have said. But to me, it seems like so cool to have so many of you guys kind of following along with the content. So thank you. I do have a couple videos to the comment that's saying play tab stuff like Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, which is 2 awesome bands by the way. Love to play over backing tracks, for example, a minor backing track. I know the skills, but can't seem to improvise. So I have made a couple videos on improvising, how to get started with improvising. I have a video, I think it's called How to Get Started Playing Lead Guitar. That gets you started being able to move around the fretboard in different keys. And then I have another video on if you feel like you're in a rut with your improvising and you're always doing the same stuff, which is very common for most guitar players. It's extremely common for anybody at any level to kind of just always do the same sort of stuff. So I'll quickly go over one of the things I talk about in that video if you want. Um, a fun thing that I do with students where they feel like I'm always playing the same stuff. Maybe I'm stuck in a pentatonic box and I just can't seem to play anything new with it. The best thing to do, or at least in my opinion, is to actually restrict what you have to use in your improv. So put on a backing track, a nice sounding backing track, and give yourself a really restricted area of the fretboard, part of the scale. So one of my favorite examples as I go through in that video is I'll have students improvise with one string. And so I like to use the Comfortably Numb backing track just because it's such a great sounding backing track and those chords just sound so cool. Let me see if I can turn up my guitar here a bit. And you only have the second string to improvise. So if it's in B minor, that also makes you, or forces you to know your minor scale across the string, which is also really different than knowing your minor scale in a box, which is of course good, and you want to make sure you know that, but it's also really good to know the scale across the string. You look at it differently. It's more of a linear approach, like a piano almost, instead of a box on the guitar. So you have to improvise and also try to make the solo as interesting as possible with only one string. So you have to like, that's just kind of like a small example, but it makes you play totally different because you can't use the things that you would normally stick to. You don't even have your pentatonic box to rely on, which a lot of guitar players, including myself, do. You can't use any of that stuff. You can't go around different strings. You have to use one string, make it sound as cool as possible, and then um, any ideas that you come up with in that plane, that's stuff that then you can apply to your regular improvising, where you do have the pentatonic, and then you can also do the single string stuff. So yeah, sorry guys. I need to figure out a better audio setup for the live streams just because um, this is the setup I usually use with teaching and it works fine in teaching and but for some reason on here the audio is really muted. So I apologize for that. Um, but I don't want to take up too much time trying to figure that out right now. Let's see. Have you ever been in a band? I've been in many bands. I've had my own band, like with my own music. That like it was like the Jamie Robinson band that I had many years ago, and it was all like instrumental guitar stuff. Or actually, at one point, I did have a vocalist, and we did a couple albums that way. I think some of that stuff would still be on my channel from years and years ago. And then I have been hired many times for whether it be session gigs or performing gigs or joining a band. I had a great opportunity to play for some bigger artists. I played for Melanie Fiona at one point, who's like a Grammy winning a Grammy nominated artist. In Yeah, just a lot of like fun gigs like that. So I have played live many times, and um, I actually really enjoy the online stuff. It's like really motivating and fun to do and to make like guitar content is like super cool. So it's really um, reinvigorated my love for playing the guitar and working on stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Hey, but I appreciate that if you've had trouble with modes until my video, that's like one of my favorite comments ever to get is that the way the tough thing with the YouTube videos that I'll share with you guys is that you have to make the video engaging so that it kind of works for the algorithm and that it keeps people engaged. But you also want to try to explain things thoroughly. So it's hard to make a video on modes and not have it be a 40-minute lesson video, which a lot of people are not going to watch the whole thing, or they're going to not watch it at all because they see it's 40 minutes. So it's actually a really tough thing to try to convey the message as clearly as possible so that everyone can understand what I'm talking about, which is also hard because everyone watching the video is at different levels or understands different things. So someone may know most of what I'm talking about and maybe think of it from a new perspective. Maybe someone is completely new to modes, and I have to make sure that they would also understand what I'm talking about. So it's quite challenging to find that fine line and also not make it 40-minute YouTube video. So I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Mhm. Yeah, that Drew, Leo, I see your question there. So um, yeah, it's funny. If you guys go through my channel, you will notice there's a huge, huge gap. And to be completely honest with you guys, I played professionally. I was playing for artists and tours and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I did lose interest in that stuff, especially the live performance stuff. I got to a point where, unfortunately, at the time, it became kind of a job. It became a chore, and like, oh, I got a gig this weekend that I got to go to, and I got to do sound check, and I got to wait around 3 hours until the gig, and I lost the passion for it, and then it got to a point where I would be on stage, and again, more when I'm hired for gigs, and it's nice you're getting paid to play, but it's not your music, it's not your passion all the time. So it became kind of a job, and I lost interest, and I really, really enjoyed the teaching. So I just taught for many years. Recently, I decided to start back up the YouTube stuff, and I'm just having like so much fun. As I said a minute ago, it has totally reinvigorated my love for just coming down and playing the guitar and practicing guitar and trying stuff. And so I'm actually really grateful that I'm having that kind of outlet, because also in that break, I would still compose music, I would still um, produce stuff. And it also became very discouraging because I would make something and it would sit on my computer and no one would ever hear it. And then it didn't really make you want to continue doing that. So now that I have this outlet where I can like share ideas or compositions or covers and any of that kind of stuff, it is so much more motivating to work on stuff, develop stuff. So I'm really happy that I've started this back up, just because, yeah, it just reminds me of the love I have for the guitar, which is great. Thank you for subbing, guys. I greatly appreciate it. You guys are the best. I'll shout you guys out anytime you want. No, no trouble at all. You guys are the best. Yeah, it can definitely be challenging when you write music and you feel like it doesn't get anywhere. Even for myself on TikTok, it's funny. I have like a fairly decent base on TikTok, and I still feel that way where I'll post something silly and funny of me starting Iron Man at a sound check, and it gets like 200,000 views, and then I post this composition that I do that I just like really feel strongly about and I love, and it gets like 2,000 views. I'm like, ah. So sometimes that can happen, and sometimes it's just what connects with people. It's the way it is. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Breaking the lessons, I did. That's why I did. Um, I had that idea kind of like at the end of producing those videos, was to break them into three parts, and I'm happy that I did, because, or else it would have been like a 35-minute video, and I don't think that would have connected as well. So that's a great idea. Thank you so much, Slade and Shreds. I appreciate it, bud. Thank you. So I definitely will keep it up, and always let me know what you want to see. Because and it's just, I honestly do love coming on here live and talking to you guys and connecting with you guys and answering your questions. I love this. I want to do it like more often. I'm using any reason to do it. So Ask if self-learning or getting a teacher is much better. That's a great question. Um, Self-learning or getting a teacher, I think both. I think both would be the best way to go. I always encourage my students to try to learn stuff on your own. Like always don't just play the stuff I give you. Like look up stuff and then usually if you have a teacher, say you're watching a YouTube video, something's confusing, then you can bounce it off the teacher and say, I'm trying to work on this, but it didn't really click. And then hopefully they can explain it to help clear it up. But always try to learn stuff on your own. It's really, really important to develop your own perspective and relation with the guitar. Everyone, for everyone, it's different. Everyone plays differently, looks at things differently, sees the fretboard differently, has different styles of music that they enjoy playing. So always try to learn stuff on your own. It's very important. But it is great to have a teacher for many reasons. Of course, they can kind of help you clear things up. Like, for instance, music theory can be quite challenging to learn on your own because there's so many different perspectives and it's hard to understand, like, um, you know, what everyone's talking about, especially if you're new to learning music theory. It's like learning a new language. Um, and then also with the teacher, they can always show you stuff that you aren't familiar with to maybe challenge you or just to get you playing stuff that's out of your comfort zone. So it definitely is a combination of both. Just always make sure to find a teacher that you connect with, that you work well with. I would strongly suggest trying to find a teacher that can play the way you want to play. It's really, really important. And it always shocks me when that's not the first criteria because it's like, if I want to be able to play like Paul Gilbert, I need to find someone who can do that because they know what it takes to get there, right? They know what it takes to actually get to that point. If that's not really your thing, you don't really know what it takes to be able to play like that. So just always find someone that you want to play like, and then try to learn from them. So that would be my biggest suggestion. Does speed come naturally with time, or is it useful to use speed building exercises to get better faster? Absolutely both. Speed will come naturally with your muscle memory developing with the guitar, where you just become more and more comfortable playing stuff on the guitar. So then you can play it faster. That definitely will come naturally. I do suggest using speed building exercises to make sure you're doing it properly. The number one way to do that, which I'm planning on doing a video on this in the next week or two, is to use a metronome. I get that a lot from students. Is like, I haven't really practiced with a metronome and I don't really know how. So I'm going to be answering that question in the video. But the metronome is your absolute best tool for building speed because, as I will probably say in the video, you get a little sneak peek here. Is if you try to play something fast today and then you go and try to play it a little faster tomorrow without a metronome, you don't really know if you're playing it a little bit faster, if it's actually around the same speed, if it's in time. With a metronome, you can actually gauge your progress. So today I can play something at 80 BPM, and tomorrow I'm going to try it at 84, 85 BPM and see if I can do that. Even if it's not perfect, I'm just going to try to up the speed a little bit that way. You do that a little bit each day for a month or two, you will be shocked how much faster you can get, and you can get twice as fast doing that in a short period of time if you're doing it properly. So use a metronome. I will make that video on how to use a metronome and the way I use it with students. Yeah, so use a metronome, but also it will come naturally for sure. I love all these questions, guys. Can that Gibby tribute handle pretty much all genres? Yeah, I've been really impressed with this guitar because it does have like slightly lower output pickups. Even from a Gibson perspective, it's their lower output pickups. I think they're standard in the SG, and the Les Pauls usually have slightly hotter pickups. Now I'm used to playing the Ibanez that has DiMarzio deactivators, which are really hot pickups. So I was a little concerned if I throw on the gain and the distortion, this thing isn't going to handle it. Totally the opposite. This thing sounds amazing. I actually have come around to liking slightly lower output pickups for the heavy stuff because I'm finding that you still get a little more clarity where it's hard to explain, but like think of it this way, like even Eddie Van Halen his original Frankenstein was a Strat body with a Gibson PAF pickup. A Gibson PAF pickup is not gonna be the hottest pickup ever. It's not even close to like an EMG or something like that. And yet look at his tone. It's just like ridiculous, right? So I actually have really loved these pickups, and they are totally versatile where they get beautiful cleans, um, really smooth lead tone. I love the lead tone on it. And then, yeah, I've cranked up the gain and, drop tunings and stuff like that. Thing sounds amazing. So if you wanted to, you could always like upgrade the pickups in one of these and put in some like, Duncans or DiMarzios or something like that. That would be pretty cool. But I actually really like them. I'm not going to change the guitar at all. What do you think about society's music taste? So, society's music taste, which is evolving, isn't it so fabricated? What do you mean by fabricated? If you want to clear that up, I'd be happy to answer. Yeah, I took lessons when I was younger. I started taking lessons when I was really young, and I had the great benefit of actually having like a bunch of different guitar teachers from the time I was like 8 to 17. I had, I don't know, b- probably between 6 to 8 guitar teachers, I would say. I'd have to think about it, but quite a few guitar teachers. The great benefit with that is I had multiple perspectives. I had multiple ways of learning things and seeing how different teachers approach different things. So I use that with my students now, where I always make sure I can explain something from multiple perspectives, multiple angles, because it's not always going to click with everyone to learn the exact same approach. So also, I had some teachers who were, total shredders and like unbelievable guitar players, like really, really motivated me to practice when I would watch them play. And then I would have another guitar teacher who would, play more of the classic stuff. And that was just as motivating too, because like they sounded so good. So yeah, I had many different guitar teachers, but I would also try to learn a lot of stuff on my own, which was harder back then because no YouTube since I'm old. So yeah. Do I ever get adult students? This is a great question. I'm 41 and I have a hard time believing I can get good at my age. Um this is the myth that I want to break all the time. 41 is young. It is totally young. To put it in perspective, you are still 30 years younger than my oldest student, I would say. And I have a handful of students way older than you. So 41, you are young. You have so much time. If you put in consistent practice, you will be so shocked at what you can accomplish in, say, 2 years. And maybe 2 years sounds like a long time, but if you're enjoying your practicing and you're learning fun stuff and you're having a lot of fun with the guitar, 2 years will fly by. So 41, yeah, so young. Definitely try to learn. Don't put it off because that's not going to help. Just get in there and start learning. Have some fun. Learn some tunes. Don't also like. I find maybe more so with adult students. Don't overthink it. At first, sometimes older students or old adult students, I should say, um, are just kind of overthinking things. They're like, how exactly should I be doing this? And just get started playing. Just learn some chords. And if it's not perfect technique and stuff like that, that's also stuff that you can kind of fine tune as you go. But just play the guitar, have some fun, and definitely start. You are still so young for guitar. Thank you so much, bud. I appreciate the comments and the questions. So thank you so much. Can I play Polypia's new song? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here's the challenges. I have not tried it. I've heard it, and it's amazing. I love their stuff. Unbelievable guitar playing. I have not tried it, but maybe I should take a look. Maybe I should, give it a shot. That would be cool. And get one of those beautiful nylon string Ibanez's that Tim Henson has. Oh my God, that thing looks beautiful with the vine inlay down the neck and everything. So nice. Any tips on playing bar chords easier? Yep. I know how to set up my guitar to get it to play well, though bar chords on the string the A string sometimes still give me trouble with hand tension. Yeah, absolutely. So here's a couple quick tips on bar chords. That is a very common obstacle to have for people. So I would try a song. Always try to use songs to learn stuff because it's fun. I would try a song that just uses one or two bar chords. So there's so many different examples, but like if you're trying any song that has a progression where it has a lot of your open chords, A, E, D, and then maybe it throws in the B minor or something like that, right? You can try just throwing in one bar chord at a time. If you try going to, thinking of like Layla by Eric Clapton, which is just like a whole bunch of bar chords in it, your hand's going to cramp up and it's going to be pretty tough. You also have a lot of shapes to memorize that way. It's going to be hard at first. So just start with like one uh, bar chord in the progression. Biggest tip for bar chords, bring the thumb nice and low at the back of the neck. That's the number one thing. If your thumb is up here as you're trying to bar, maybe you can get it. It's going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward and it's not going to feel the way it should. Bring the wrist under the guitar, which as I'm sitting with this Les Paul is a little bit harder because it sits so low on you. But if you're sitting with an acoustic or something, it's a little bit easier. Bring the thumb nice and low underneath. It will make that first finger want to flatten right out. Try to lean your first finger on its back a little bit like that, where you're using a bit more of the side of your finger than sitting it flush on the strings. That part of your finger is really soft. It's not going to have enough strength to bar. Over here, much easier. Also gives you a better position to stretch your fingers over to reach the other notes. Right? So what I would also do, the final thing to practice with bar chords, whatever the progression is, say it's going from a B minor to an E chord, just sit there for 1 to 2 minutes, a short amount of time, not too much longer than that, and just play your B minor and play your E back and forth. Get that hand position change. Notice with the E, my thumb's up here. With the B minor, my thumb's down here. Start nice and slow so you can get the changes. Make sure they're nice and clear. And then just gradually speed them up as you go. Your fingers start to memorize where they have to go. After a while, you can get the changes faster. And then when you're playing the progression and you have more time at each chord, it's going to feel so much easier that way than going like that. If you want some great music to try with bar chords, one of my go-tos is always the Beatles, just because a lot of their songs use bar chords. They're super fun to play. Great music, of course. So definitely look at some of their stuff to practice your bar chords. All right, let's keep going. I do have to go in a few minutes, but I want to answer as many questions as I can. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize there's more questions. I'm new to this, okay? Yeah. That's a good point. Start on an acoustic and you'll be so relieved when you get to electric. Um, Acoustic is definitely harder to play than electric. So that's kind of going back to my speed thing I was talking about, where you can shock yourself at a higher speed and then bring it back down. Same sort of thing when you switch from acoustic to electric. Um, that the strings will feel so much lighter and so much easier, and bar chords, especially something like that, will feel so much easier when you play it on the electric guitar. If you are starting on the guitar fresh, you're a complete beginner, don't be afraid to start on electric guitar because especially if you have an acoustic that's like not set up properly or it's just not like the greatest acoustic, it's probably going to be pretty tough to play. So you want to kind of eliminate obstacles when you're first starting. It's going to motivate you more if you sound better. And learning guitar is already tough enough, so you don't need anything making it harder for yourself. That's my opinion. Hey Jamie, how do you think your Les Paul Tribute compares to the SG Standard since they have the same pickups? Yeah, I think the tone of it would probably be pretty similar. This is a huge debate with guitar players, of course, is the wood of the guitar making a contribution to the tone? I believe it does. Um, so the SG would be pure mahogany, I believe, body and neck. This one has maple top, still like kind of like Les Paul standards, but also a maple neck. So that does give you a slightly different tone. I like it personally. Um, but also, SGs feel quite different than a Les Paul. Both great guitars. Um, I would love an SG standard. I actually want the SG that has the vibrato arm on it. I forget what it's called. There's two of them. There's one that's sideways, and then there's the other one. I want the other one. But yeah, having the SG with the vibrato arm would be another guitar that I would love to own just because it's classic. Did you like to practice Dream Theater? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dream Theater for any technical types of music. Dream Theater is an amazing band to look at. Obviously, they're all incredibly accomplished musicians and they really know their stuff. Um, their music does make for great practice material because it's very precise. You can learn it note for note, and it can really work on knowing time signatures, knowing scales, working on speed, of course, because it's John Petrucci. um, yeah, the SG with the vibrato 61 reissues. I think so. You're probably right, but I don't know if the one I was looking at was technically a reissue or not. But you could be right. I'm not that familiar with them. I just know every time I see them, I want one. But yeah, Dream Theater, amazing stuff to practice. So if you're doing stuff like, hopefully you guys can hear this, but if you're doing like, trying to think some of my favorites, like Erotomania, that basically is like a finger exercise. It's a great exercise, and it's also a cool sounding riff. I like using constant motion is a cool one. I think it's something like that and played it a lot, but great stuff to practice. And of course, any Petrucci stuff is like, so much fun. Any of his stuff. Yeah. All right, let's do a couple more questions before I have to go. Yeah, thank you for joining the live stream. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad the tips are helping you guys because that's what I love to do is I love to teach and I love to help people get better at the guitar and everything. So always feel free to ask as many questions as you can. What's the major differences between classical playing to now? I think you might mean classic playing. Classical guitar is very, very different than contemporary guitar, you could call it, or rock guitar, or pop guitar. Um, Classic stuff. Um, if that is what you're talking about, if you're talking about classic guitar to modern guitar, um, classic stuff is typically more like blues oriented, which is great, and I think it's actually really important to learn blues stuff. It really helps you learn feel. Um, Nowadays, at least with the guitar players I see, it's a lot more on technique. It's a lot more on precision, and it's not a bad thing at all. But I love hearing guitar players express themselves with the instrument. And I did a video on this as a kind of like snarky video called "Shred Has No Feel." I don't think playing fast automatically means you don't have feel. I would argue that someone like Dimebag Darrell has just as much feel as BB King. And to some, I don't know, that may be like controversial or whatever, but I absolutely think like Dimebag plays with such a passion and intensity and expression in the way he plays. He's really showing you like his personality in his playing. Same with Eddie Van Halen, where there's a lot of guys nowadays where it kind of lacks the passion and expression, and it's my way of describing that is if you were to take a guitar solo and punch in all the notes into Guitar Pro and hear it with a MIDI computer signal, and say you put a good guitar effects processor on that so it had good tone, would it sound the exact same as the person playing it? If you did that with a Dimebag solo, it's not going to sound the same. You need to have Dimebag playing that solo for it to sound that way. There are a lot of guitar players where if you punched it into Guitar Pro, it would not sound any different at all. It just sounds like a machine playing it, right? And that's not a knock to anybody. It's just my personal preference that I want to hear what that person has to offer on the guitar. I want to hear some. I find someone like Guthrie Govan is a perfect blend of that. That guy can play absolutely anything, and yet he still plays with like musicality and passion and everything. So someone like him is a great example. Do you think to keep originality, we should not learn every popular mainstream guitar song? It's a good question. Um, that's a good question. Uh, Maybe if you find that your playing is like mimicking it too much, then you can back off. But I don't know. For someone like myself, I learn almost every single mainstream guitar song because of teaching. Anything that has cool guitar in it, at some point I will learn it with a student because usually the students are bringing in music for me to teach them their choice. So I don't feel like it really hinders my playing. I think in some ways it's more just more stuff to grab inspiration from, and then you become this melting pot of ideas. Maybe if you were sticking to only one artist, if you only learn Stevie Ray Vaughan songs, and I love Stevie Ray Vaughan, but you only learn his stuff, probably going to be sounding pretty similar to Stevie Ray when you play, because that's all you're influenced by. Where imagine, and just off the top of my head, say you're influenced by Stevie Ray Vaughan and Tim Henson. That's going to be quite the mix. That would be super cool to hear, and it creates something unique. It creates something probably in some way not heard before, right? So taking influences from so many different areas usually is a good thing, in my opinion. Yeah, Dimebag, absolutely, 100%. one of the greatest. Hey Jamie, really love your work and love the rock jazz sessions. Thank you. Yeah, those are fun to do. What suggestions would you have for someone who's starting with lead guitar? So I actually do have a video called "How to Get Started Playing Lead Guitar." It focuses more on if you're improvising. I would check that out. Start with lead guitar. Any practice exercises that you can suggest? Yeah, two things. Try to improvise with scales. So start with like the pentatonic scale, since it's a nice simple scale, and really try to improvise with it as much as you can over backing tracks. That works on so many aspects of your playing. So definitely do that. And then also, if you get started with lead guitar playing, learn guitar solos, learn some of your favorite solos. Start with nice and easy ones that you could play sounding like the record. You could play with the record if you need to. Yeah, just learn solos, and then you can just gradually learn harder and harder ones. But do those two things. Make sure to do some improv stuff to challenge your own decision making with the scale, if that makes sense, or just what you do with the scale, and then learn new ideas and influences by learning other people's stuff. Yeah, BB King is incredible. All right, last one, just because unfortunately, guys, I do have to go. Please suggest how to play Dream Theater songs. As I said, with Dream Theater, um, the nice thing with Dream Theater, this is a weird thing to explain to some students, is that sometimes to learn a Dream Theater song or solo can actually be easier than learning a Jimmy Page solo from Led Zeppelin. And you would think, some people think, well, John Petrucci's like miles ahead of Jimmy Page. What are you talking about? He does all these crazy techniques. But John Petrucci is an extremely precise guitar player. When you watch him play the solo live, it sounds exactly like the record. It's precise, it's rehearsed, it's practiced. So when you learn it, you can learn it note for note. And if you gradually speed it up, it will end up sounding like the way John Petrucci plays it. to a certain extent. You know what I mean by that. With Jimmy Page plays with such an element of improv and spontaneous in the moment playing that sometimes to learn his stuff note for note will make no sense at all. And sometimes you have to learn how to pick and choose which notes are actually important to the phrase. So when Jimmy Page is doing like, I'm thinking like since I've been loving you. Sorry, different song. Since I've been loving you, in that solo when he starts it off with that those crazy runs. If you ask Jimmy Page to slow that down and play it note for note, he would go, I don't even know what I'm doing. It's just I'm shredding through the scale really fast, and it's not note for note at all. It's just playing with an intensity. So with Dream Theater, the nice thing is you can start really, really slow and you can play it precise. You can play it note for note, and then just over time with a metronome, preferably, you can just gradually speed it up. But again, something like Constant Motion, it's a nice, consistent, precise riff. So that's kind of easy stuff to practice in a way. It's not easy to play as fast as them, but it's easy to practice because you can play every note the exact same speed, work on the fingering technique, work on the timing. Where sometimes with like a Jimmy Page solo, you can't really slow it down half speed because then it doesn't actually work and it doesn't really make any sense that way. So sometimes it's a weird thing to explain, but it's totally part of learning different players stuff is you have to approach the music like the player approached it. So if you're playing a Jimmy Page riff, you have to kind of approach it like Jimmy Page would approach it. And if you're playing John Petrucci, you have to approach it like John Petrucci would. That's my opinion. So again, thank you guys. It's so much fun to do this. I love doing these live streams. So if you'd like more of them, if you want more like Q&As and stuff like that, always let me know in the comments. Um, I love doing these. So as often as you guys would like, I can do them. But thank you guys so much for all the support, all the feedback, all the comments, all the likes and sharing. I greatly appreciate it. The channel has gotten a lot more, uh, you know, momentum to it than I expected in this short amount of time. So thank you so much. And I want to continue trying to make the best content that I can for you guys. So always let me know, what it is you guys would like to see, especially lesson stuff. I'm always trying to figure out what it is that would really connect with you guys with what you're wanting to learn, right? So I'm always happy to share my methods and all that kind of stuff. So please let me know. Always comment. I'm happy to hear from you guys. I do try to reply to a lot of comments. I actually take a little bit of time each day to just go through comments and reply to them. So always feel free to reach out to me that way. Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. So let's do another one soon. And thanks again. I greatly appreciate it, guys. You guys have a great weekend. See ya.